Michael Jordan learns a die-hard fan waited 8 hours in the cold, but collapsed before meeting him. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today, and if you like this story, don't forget to subscribe. It was the kind of cold that sliced through your jacket and settled into your bones. The wind whipped around the corners of the stadium like it had a personal vendetta against anyone standing outside. But Trae didn't flinch. Not once. His gloved hands were clenched in his lap, and his breath came out in slow, visible puffs. He had been sitting on that folding chair for 6 hours now, bundled up in layers, his MJ jersey still proudly displayed over his coat. Keisha stood behind him, pacing, checking the time on her phone every 5 minutes. "Trae, we've been out here all day. This is getting dangerous. Your lips are blue. We need to go." Trae didn't look at her. His eyes were locked on the glass doors of the arena entrance, where he believed, hoped, Michael Jordan would walk out any moment. He said he'd be here. "I'm not leaving." Keisha crouched in front of him. "You're not okay. Look at me. We've already missed your treatment. What if something happens?" Trae's voice was hoarse, but firm. "I've been dreaming of this for years. I just want to see him. One time. That's all." She looked around. The crowd had grown. News had spread online that MJ was making an appearance at a charity event. No tickets. First come, first served. Trae didn't care about autographs. He didn't even want a photo. He just wanted to be seen by the man whose posters covered his bedroom walls, whose highlights had been his escape from the hospital beds and chemo chairs. Security guards moved along the entrance, trying to keep order. People pushed forward. No one paid much attention to the thin teenager wrapped in scarves near the front. Keisha tried to get the attention of one of the guards. "Excuse me, my brother's sick. He's been out here for hours. Can we just let him inside to warm up for a bit?" The guard shook his head without looking. "No passes. No exceptions. It's a closed event." Keisha's jaw tightened. He's not just any fan. He's fought through stuff no kid should ever go through. Can you just tell someone? The guard walked off, and Keisha turned back, blinking hard. Trae was shivering now, despite all the layers. She took off her own coat and draped it around his shoulders. Inside the stadium, warm lights buzzed overhead. MJ sat at a round table in a private suite, surrounded by executives and sponsors. He nodded through conversations, laughed politely, signed a few items for charity auction, and gave a brief speech about the power of perseverance. Cameras flashed. Applause followed. He did what he was paid to do. His team stuck close, moving him from one engagement to the next. "Ready for the press walk?" one assistant asked. MJ paused. "How many people outside?" The assistant glanced at his phone. "Packed. Hundreds. Word got out. You want to stop out there for a minute? Quick wave?" MJ nodded. "Yeah. 5 minutes." Back outside, Trae leaned on Keisha. He couldn't sit up straight anymore. His head sagged forward, his face pale. Keisha grabbed him by the shoulders. "Trae? Hey. Hey, talk to me." He didn't answer. A woman nearby noticed and shouted for help. People backed away as Keisha lowered him to the ground. Paramedics were called. A voice crackled over a walkie-talkie. The crowd shifted, murmurs growing. Inside, MJ was walking down the corridor, ready to make his brief appearance. A staff member intercepted him. "Sir, heads up, there was a situation outside. A kid passed out. Ambulance is here." MJ stopped. "What kind of situation?" "Just a fan. Cold exposure, probably. It's handled. We've already got him in an ambulance. Probably best to keep walking. Cameras are rolling." He hesitated. Just for a second. Then he walked on. Outside, Keisha sat in the back of the ambulance with Trey, holding his hand. The medic was doing his best to stabilize him, but Trey was slipping in and out. His lips were still blue. Oxygen was strapped on. She whispered to him, voice cracking. "You did it, okay? You made it to the door. MJ's here. Just hold on." She didn't know that inside, MJ was now standing under the lights, waving to the crowd. The cheers were deafening. He didn't see the ambulance pull away. He didn't hear Keisha's sobs. The moment passed. Later that night, in his hotel room, MJ stared at the television. News reports showed clips of the crowd, the cheers, the event. It was a good PR moment. He should have felt content. But then he checked his phone. A message from a longtime staffer read, "Kid outside, name was Trey Jackson. 16. Cancer patient. Waiting to meet you. Collapsed before you came out. Sister said he watched you every night in the hospital." MJ put the phone down. Walked to the window. The city lights flickered beneath him. He sat down in the dark and stayed there. Hours passed. He didn't say a word. The next morning, he canceled his press schedule. Told his driver to take him somewhere. The hospital wasn't far. No cameras followed. No handlers were with him. Just MJ, wearing a plain hoodie, walking past the front desk with quiet purpose. He found Trey's room on the 3rd floor. And paused in the doorway. The boy was still unconscious. Keisha looked up and froze. She didn't smile. She didn't stand. Just stared. MJ walked in slowly, removed his hat. He looked older than anyone ever saw him look. And more human. He sat in the chair beside the bed and looked at the kid whose face still had traces of dried frost on his skin. And he whispered something no one but the walls would ever hear. "I should have come sooner." The room was quiet, except for the faint beeping of machines and the slow rhythm of the oxygen pump. Michael Jordan stayed in the chair next to Trey's bed, arms resting on his knees, eyes fixed on the unconscious teenager's face. The room wasn't fancy. No jerseys on the wall. Just white curtains, a worn chair, and the soft hum of machines keeping Trey stable. Keisha still didn't say anything. She sat across from him, arms folded, a wall of emotion behind her tired expression. MJ finally looked at her. "I'm sorry," he said, voice low. Keisha nodded, but not in forgiveness. "He waited 8 hours. 8. Just to see you walk by." MJ didn't argue. He didn't make excuses. "I know." She glanced at Trey. "He skipped treatment for this. He said he needed to see you more than the medicine. That it gave him something to fight for." MJ's throat tightened. "I didn't know." "That's the problem," she said, her voice sharper now. "You never know. You don't see these kids watching your highlights while hooked up to IVs. You don't see them pretending to shoot buzzer beaters from a hospital bed. They believe in you more than they believe in doctors." MJ leaned forward. "I used to be one of those kids too. I know what it's like to need someone to look up to. I just forgot what it meant to be looked up to." Keisha looked away, swallowing her frustration. "You came now. That's something." He stood and pulled something from his pocket. It was a folded piece of paper. Worn edges. Handwritten. "I didn't bring a team. No cameras. No speech. Just this." He placed it on the nightstand beside Trey's bed. "It's for him. When he wakes up." She glanced at the letter, but didn't reach for it. "And if he doesn't?" "Then you read it." MJ gave Trey one last look, then nodded and quietly stepped out of the room. Later that evening, Keisha sat alone by Trey's bedside. The machines beeped steadily. She picked up the letter, hesitated, then unfolded it. The handwriting was rough, but clear. "Trey, I should have come sooner. That's on me. You remind me of myself more than you know. When I was your age, I looked up to someone too. David Thompson. I wrote him letters. Never got a reply. But I kept believing anyway. The truth is, I haven't always lived up to what people saw in me. Fame makes you forget that being great isn't about awards or contracts. It's about moments. You gave me one today, even if we didn't get to talk. I watched you from that chair, and I saw someone stronger than I ever was. I hope you wake up and read this. But even if you don't, know this, your fight meant something. Not to the cameras. Not to the headlines. To me. And that's real. MJ. Keisha didn't realize she was crying until a tear dropped onto the corner of the paper. She wiped her face quickly. Trey stirred slightly in the bed. His fingers twitched. Trey, she whispered, standing fast. His lips moved, barely. Did he come? She gripped his hand, eyes wide. Yeah. He came. He sat right there. Trey gave the faintest smile. Did he say anything? She nodded, trying to keep her voice steady. He said, you reminded him why he started. Trey's eyes didn't fully open, but his grip tightened just a little. Over the next few days, Trey slowly recovered. His fever dropped. His color returned. The hospital staff treated him like royalty. Word had spread about the visit. Nurses kept sneaking in just to take pictures of the signed shoes MJ had left behind. A week later, Trey was discharged. Still weak, but walking. At home, he was surprised to find a box on the doorstep. No return address. Inside was a framed photo of MJ during his rookie year. It had one line written across the bottom, "See you soon, M." Keisha raised an eyebrow. What does that mean? Trey shrugged. I don't know. But it means something. 3 days later, they got a call from an unfamiliar number. Hello? Keisha answered. Hi. This is Sharon, from the Bulls front office. Michael wanted to personally invite Trey to Chicago. Game night. Full access. He'll explain more when you get here. Keisha nearly dropped the phone. Wait, what? Flight tickets followed. VIP passes. Hotel rooms. Trey didn't stop smiling the entire flight. It was his first time on a plane. First time out of state. He kept the letter in his hoodie pocket like a good luck charm. At the United Center, they were treated like family. Trey met players, shook hands with coaches, even shot a few hoops on the practice court before the game. But MJ wasn't there yet. Keisha nudged him. Maybe he's busy. Then, 10 minutes before tip-off, someone called Trey's name. He turned, and there he was. MJ, in a gray suit, no entourage, just a warm smile and tired eyes. You made it, MJ said. Trey couldn't speak at first. Then finally, thank you, for the letter. MJ nodded. It was overdue. Trey reached into his hoodie and pulled something out. It was a photo. A grainy shot from years ago, of Trey holding a plastic basketball in a hospital bed with MJ on the TV in the background. You were there even when you didn't know. MJ stared at it for a moment, then smiled. Mind if I keep this? Trey handed it over without hesitation. MJ put a hand on his shoulder. Come with me. They walked down the tunnel together, past reporters, past fans, past anything that mattered in that moment. Into something that did. The hallway was quiet except for their footsteps. Trey stayed close behind MJ, trying to play it cool but feeling like his heart might explode. He had imagined this moment 100 times, but nothing came close to walking side by side with the man he had idolized since he was 6 years old. They passed a few players in warm-ups who gave Trey nods or fist bumps. Most of them had already heard about him, word spread fast in the locker room. But none of them interrupted. They knew this was something personal. MJ pushed open a side door and led Trey into a small film room. Just a projector, some chairs, and silence. He gestured for Trey to sit, then grabbed the remote and dimmed the lights. Before you watch the game, MJ said, I want to show you something. The screen flickered to life. It wasn't a highlight reel. It wasn't a documentary. It was raw, uncut footage from the '97 playoffs, MJ pacing in the locker room, sweating, exhausted, and angry after a loss. He slammed his shoes into a locker and muttered under his breath. The footage cut to him later that night, sitting alone, scribbling in a notebook. Trae watched, confused. Why are you showing me this? MJ didn't look at him. Because nobody ever sees this part. They see the buzzer beaters, the championships, the speeches. Not the losses. Not the pain. That night, I almost walked away. I told my trainer I was done. But you didn't. No. But only because someone reminded me what it meant to keep going. Someone who didn't play. Someone who never got credit. I owed that person. And I never said thank you. Trae nodded slowly, trying to piece it together. MJ turned to him. You showed up in the cold and waited. You didn't ask for anything. That means something, Trae. You reminded me again. There was a long pause between them. Then MJ reached into a folder and handed Trae another letter. This one's not for you. It's from you. Trae looked confused. What do you mean? I want you to write something. For the next kid who's fighting. The next Trae. Trae blinked. Me? Why would anyone care what I write? MJ gave him a look. Because they'll believe you. You've been where they are. Trae stared at the paper in his lap. His hands trembled a little. Okay, he said. I'll try. They sat for a while longer in silence. MJ eventually stood. Game's about to start. Let's head out. As they walked back through the tunnel, the roar of the crowd grew louder. The Bulls were warming up. The Jumbotron showed player stats, the announcers were hyping up the fans, and the lights dimmed for the opening introductions. But before MJ led Trae to his seat, he paused and waved over one of the assistant coaches. He whispered something. The coach nodded. 2 minutes later, just before tip-off, the announcer's voice boomed across the arena. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome a special guest tonight. He's a fighter. A fan. And an inspiration to us all, Trae Jackson. The spotlight hit Trae, and the entire stadium erupted. People stood, clapping, cheering louder than they did for half the players. Trae looked frozen. Then MJ nudged him gently forward. Trae stepped onto the court and waved shyly. His knees felt weak, but the warmth of the applause kept him standing. For the first time in a long time, he didn't feel like a sick kid. He felt seen. After the introductions, Trae took his seat courtside. Keisha was already there, beaming and wiping away tears. The game tipped off, and from the jump, it was electric. Fast breaks, tight defense, highlight dunks. But one player stood out, Darius Cole, a rookie who had been struggling all season. He had heard about Trae from the locker room talk. Tonight, something clicked. Darius played like a man possessed. Diving for loose balls, taking charges, feeding teammates, hitting shots. Every time he scored, he'd glance over at Trae. It wasn't just a show. It was a statement. By halftime, Darius had a career high in points and assists. Trae looked over at MJ. He's killing it. MJ nodded. He sees you. Trae grinned. That's wild. In the second half, the game tightened. The lead changed hands multiple times. With 2 seconds left, the Bulls were down by 1. Timeout. Everyone held their breath. Darius walked over to MJ, who now stood behind the bench. They talked quietly for a second. Then Darius jogged back onto the court, took the inbound, drove hard, pulled up, and hit a jumper as time expired. Game over. The arena exploded. The team mobbed Darius at half court. The crowd was deafening. But once the celebration calmed down, Darius jogged over to Trae and handed him the game ball. "This is yours," he said. "Thanks for reminding me why we play." Trey took it, speechless. After the game, MJ brought Trey and Keisha into the press room. Reporters scrambled to ask questions, but MJ stepped up to the podium first. "I've had a lot of big nights in this building," he said. "But tonight, I wasn't the one who inspired anyone." He gestured to Trey. "This kid reminded all of us why basketball matters. Why it's more than a game. It's about heart. It's about showing up when it's hard. And tonight, that's what Trey did." He stepped aside and let Trey speak. Trey stood behind the mic, nervous. Awkward. But then he found his voice. "I just wanted to see my hero. I didn't think I'd be standing here. But I guess sometimes, life surprises you. If you're going through something hard, keep going. Even if no one sees it right away, someone will." He stepped back, and the room broke into applause. Later that night, back at the hotel, Trey sat on the bed with the game ball in his lap. Keisha was brushing her hair in the bathroom. "Hey," he called out, "you think I should actually write that letter?" She poked her head out. "You already started writing it." He looked down. She was right. There was something on the desk. A few scribbled lines, thoughts jotted down on a hotel notepad. For once, Trey didn't feel like just a fan. He felt like part of the story. A week passed. Back home, Trey sat in his room, the lights off, just the soft glow from his laptop screen lighting the space. The framed game ball from Chicago was on the dresser next to MJ's letter. It still didn't feel real, none of it did. But something had changed in him. Something bigger than the trip or the fame. He opened a blank document and stared at the screen. The cursor blinked. Waiting. Then he started typing. It wasn't perfect. He didn't try to sound wise or impressive. He just told the truth. About the cold, about the fear, about wanting to give up. And then about how it all flipped because someone finally saw him, not as a patient, not as a fan, but as a person. 3 hours later, Trey sent the letter to the Bulls front office with a note. MJ said someone might need this. He didn't expect a reply. But 3 days later, he got a call. "Trey? This is Celeste from the Bulls. Michael read your letter. He wants to use it." "Use it how?" "He wants to include it in the care packages the team sends to kids and hospitals. He said your words did something no campaign could." Trey was stunned. Yeah, okay. Sure. And one more thing, he wants you to speak at the next community event in Chicago. If you're up for it." He hesitated. "Me? Talk?" Celeste laughed. "You already did. That press room clip? It's been shared over 2 million times." Trey looked at the floor. "All right. Yeah. I'll do it." The next few days were a whirlwind. Interviews. Video calls. A segment on local news. Even a podcast with Darius Cole, who now referred to Trey as his pregame coach. It felt surreal. But in the middle of all that, Keisha pulled him aside one evening while they were walking home from the pharmacy. "Don't forget what this started from," she said. "I haven't. I'm proud of you. But you gotta remember why this matters. Not just the spotlight. It's about the next Trey." He nodded. "That's what I'm trying to do." "You're already doing it." When they flew back to Chicago for the event, the city felt different. This time, Trey wasn't just visiting. He was invited. Expected. Respected. The Bulls community event took place in a rec center on the south side. Not a fancy hotel. Not an arena. Just a gym packed with kids, families, and local volunteers. MJ wanted it that way. When Trey walked in, the kids clapped. Some knew him from the viral clip. Others had no idea who he was, but they felt the energy. Darius was there too, seated on the bleachers, dressed in a hoodie and sneakers, blending in with the crowd. He gave Trey a thumbs up. MJ arrived just as Trey stepped up to the mic. He stood in the back, arms crossed, watching. Trey took a breath. I used to think I had nothing to give anyone. I was just a sick kid who loved basketball. But sometimes, showing up is enough. Waiting outside in the cold? That changed my life. Not because of what happened after, but because I didn't quit before. The room was quiet. Listening. I don't know what you're all going through, he continued. But I know how it feels to think no one sees you. Just know, someone does. He stepped back. The room clapped, but it wasn't wild. It was real. Deep. MJ walked over afterward, clapped a hand on Trey's shoulder. You're better at this than I ever was. Trey smirked. You sure? You've got a few more rings than me. MJ smiled. Rings are easy. Reaching people? That's the hard part. After the event, MJ pulled Trey aside. I've been thinking, MJ said, about doing something bigger. For kids like you. A foundation. Your story lit a fire under me. Trey blinked. You want me involved? More than involved. I want it built around you. Trey didn't know what to say. MJ continued. We'll start with 3 cities. Chicago. Wilmington. And your hometown. Free clinics, gym access, mentorship programs. No suits. No noise. Just real help. But it starts with your story. Your voice. Trey's throat tightened. I'm in. That night, they stayed in Chicago. In a hotel suite overlooking the skyline. MJ had dinner sent up. No press. No guests. Just them and Keisha. They talked for hours. About life. About loss. About the things people never saw, like MJ breaking down after his father's funeral. Or Trey crying in a hospital bathroom, pretending he was just brushing his teeth. Pain makes people hide, MJ said. But it's also where all the real stuff lives. Trey nodded. That's where I found my fight. And they sat in that quiet understanding, an unspoken bond between generations, born from cold nights, missed chances, and the decision to show up anyway. Back home, Trey started volunteering at a local rec center. Not because anyone asked him to, but because he wanted to be present for the next kid waiting in the cold. He ran drills. Talked to families. Sometimes he just rebounded for the younger players and told stories. At first, most didn't know who he was. But word got around. One day, a boy named Marcus, maybe 12, came up after practice. He held up a crumpled piece of paper. It was Trey's letter. My sister gave me this, Marcus said. Said it helped her when she was scared. I kept it in my backpack since. Trey looked at the worn edges, the fading ink. You okay? Marcus shrugged. My mom's sick. Sometimes I feel like nobody gets it. Trey sat down on the bench beside him. I get it. They didn't say much after that. They didn't have to. Some things don't need a speech. Just a moment. That night, Trey wrote another letter. This time it wasn't about him. It was about a kid with worn shoes, standing at a free throw line, scared of missing, but shooting anyway. Because sometimes, courage looks like showing up. And that was a shot worth taking. The gym was quiet, just the soft squeak of sneakers and the occasional bounce of a basketball echoing through the space. It was late, well past the last drill, but Trey stayed behind. The rec center had become a second home. He wasn't just running sessions anymore. He was building something. Helping kids, organizing drives, staying connected to families in the community. The letter, the game ball, even the MJ moment, none of it had changed who he was deep down. But it had shown him what he could do. He picked up a basketball and stood at the free throw line, staring at the rim. The same line he stood on months ago as a sick kid hoping to make it through the winter. Now, he was stronger. Not just physically, mentally, emotionally. He had a purpose. He took the shot. Swish. Keisha leaned in the doorway, smiling. Still got it. Trey looked over. I had to make sure. Big day tomorrow. You nervous? More than I thought I'd be. She stepped onto the court, folding her arms. You've spoken to schools, met with players, been on live TV, and sat courtside with Michael Jordan. What could tomorrow possibly do to you? Trey let out a breath. Because it's different. This is ours. Tomorrow was the grand opening of the new community facility, funded by MJ's foundation but named after Trey. Not for fame, not for show, but because MJ had insisted. He said people needed to see what a kid with heart and grit could build, not just what he could survive. Keisha walked up and handed him a folded hoodie. It was black with bold red letters across the front, the Jackson Center. Trey ran his fingers across the stitching. You serious? Dead serious. Your name's on the wall. Might as well wear it. He smiled, a little overwhelmed. You think MJ will show? Keisha raised an eyebrow. Has he missed anything since that day? Trey grinned. No, he hasn't. The next morning, the crowd gathered early. Families, kids, coaches, volunteers. Reporters hung around the edges but kept their distance. MJ had made it clear this wasn't a media stunt. It was about community. About real stories. The Jackson Center stood tall with its red brick walls, freshly painted court, and a mural just inside the entrance. The mural showed Trey sitting on a bench, bundled up in the cold, with a ghostly silhouette of MJ standing behind him, one hand resting on his shoulder. No words. Just emotion. Trey stepped onto the makeshift stage, adjusted the mic, and looked out at the sea of faces. Many of them he knew by name now. Kids who showed up every week, parents who finally had somewhere safe for their children to go after school. He didn't read a speech. He just spoke from the heart. When I was sitting outside that stadium in the cold, I didn't think about changing the world. I just wanted to see someone who inspired me. I didn't know that moment would lead here. I didn't know it would change me. But it did. He paused, steadying his voice. This building isn't just about me. It's about all the kids who are told they're too small, too sick, too far gone to make a difference. This place proves that they're wrong. Applause followed, warm and real. When Trey stepped down, MJ met him halfway. The crowd parted as the legend approached. Still no entourage. Still no fanfare. Just him and that calm focus. You killed it, MJ said. Did I? MJ nodded. That was your final shot. Game winner. Trey laughed. You ever get tired of turning everything into basketball? Never. They stood at the center of the court together, just like that first night in Chicago. The gym buzzed around them, but for a second, it felt like time stopped. MJ pulled out a small box. Got one more thing. Trey opened it and found a silver whistle inside, engraved with the words, "Keep showing up." He didn't say anything. Just stared at it. MJ clapped him on the shoulder. You're the coach now. The rest of the day was filled with games, music, laughter, and food. Darius showed up, too, fresh off a playoff run. He helped run drills with the younger kids and even got dunked on by a 7-year-old, much to everyone's delight. He took it like a champ. That night, after the crowd thinned and the sun began to dip, Trey sat on the bleachers. MJ joined him again, just like before. You know, MJ said, I've met presidents, CEOs, world leaders. But that cold night, you reminded me of who I was before all that. Trey looked at him. You reminded me that I could be more than just a kid fighting cancer. Silence passed between them. Nothing needed to be added. Later, Keisha drove them home. Trey looked out the window, watching the rec center fade into the distance behind them. He felt calm. Fulfilled. and, for the first time in his life, fully in control of his story. A few months later, he started college. He chose education. Said he wanted to be the kind of teacher who saw kids the way MJ saw him that night. Or maybe the way he started seeing himself. Letters from other kids began arriving at the Jackson Center. Some were from small towns. Others from big cities. All of them said the same thing: "I read your story. It helped me." Trey read every one. He responded to most. One day, he found a letter taped to the door. No return address. Just a note. "I waited 5 hours in the rain to meet you. I didn't. But now I think I understand why. It wasn't about meeting you. It was about becoming someone worth meeting." Trey stood there a long time after reading it. He didn't know who sent it. Didn't need to. All he knew was, the torch had been passed again. And that was enough. The final scene is quiet. Trey walking alone into the empty gym one night. He turns on the lights, walks to center court, and blows the silver whistle once. In the silence that follows, he smiles. Because he knows. The game goes on.